Another sensible question people ask of me, they'll often say, well, what if I opened up a can of worms? What if I found out I was somebody awful in the past? Yeah, and let's think about that one. What if we were? Let me give you a personal example of that. It's not my own example, but it is an American man who came to me for a regression. I didn't know what his circumstances were, had never met him in my life before. So I invited him into my practice to do this regression with him. And I simply said at the beginning of it, is there anything you want to tell me before we start? Or anything you think I ought to know? Some people think there's some things they want to tell me, others don't, and we just begin. But anyway, this man who was in his 40s, I would guess, he said, yes, there is. Yes, I think you ought to know. When I was young, when I was about 19, I had a girlfriend called Patty. Lovely, lovely girl. She was beautiful on the outside and she was beautiful on the inside, and I absolutely adored her. I idolised her. And he said she was so pretty, so attractive. We were hard up for money. He said, I knew some guys who knew someone who managed to get her a little bit of photographic modelling. He said, and all went well for a few months. She did the photographic modelling a couple of times a week. That was great, a little bit of extra money. He said, and then when I came home one evening back to the apartment, she was upset, didn't want to do this anymore. He said they'd asked her to take her clothes off, and she said that wasn't part of the deal. And he'd said to her, too right, that wasn't part of the deal. Well, don't do it anymore then. That's that. But he said a fortnight later, when I come back home to the apartment, Patty was in the most awful state you could possibly imagine. And she had been raped by 3 men. And he said, I just instinctively knew it was something to do with these guys because she wouldn't play ball with them. And he said, I was beside myself. How could this happen? How could males behave like this? How could they? He said, and, you know, to my beautiful, beautiful girlfriend who deserved nothing but good. But this had happened. He said she was devastated, but I was worse. But he said the really strange thing was that Patty began to get over it, and I didn't. And he said that the more well Patty became and the more she wanted to move on from it, the more entrenched in the upset and the pain and the anger and the difficulty I became. He said till in the end this led to so many arguments between the two of us that eventually she decided she would leave me. And he said at that point I was absolutely devastated. My world completely ended. So he said I simply took my gun and I went out on the street. He said, and I shot dead the first 2 men I came to. He said, before I was stopped. And that was that. I trust the energies that I work with, and I trust that if this man has come to me, he has come to me for a good reason. And therefore, I trust myself to be able to deal with what's going to happen next. So, I took this man back into regression, a little bit of hypnosis, and led him back into regression. Now, the first thing he found when he went back into this past life was that he was a Roman soldier in Greece. They had just conquered Greece at that time, and he was there in Greece, standing outside a home, a house, a building of some sort, and he's clutching at his tummy. And I must admit, he's gone pale in the face by now, and he's actually saying to me, I feel sick. God, I'm so sick. I can't listen to this. I can't listen to this. And when I said to him, what are you listening to? He said, him in there, him. Oh God, I can't hear it. And I said, okay, who is it that's in there? Who are you listening to? Who is he? And he said, my best friend. Oh God, don't make me, I can't be here. And I said, right, what's he doing? What are you hearing? And he said, he's raping her. Oh God, he's raping her. Oh, I feel so sick. And when I said, why is this happening? He said, it's what we do. We're the victorious army here. We do what we like. We take what we like. But I can't do it. It's not right. I can't do this. I can't hear this. So I moved him away from that scene because it was obviously distressing to him, moved him on in time a little, asked him where he was now. And he, with great surprise, said, oh, I'm in Rome. I'm in a villa. Nice little villa. I'm married. I've got 2 children. Boy of 13, a little girl of 7. Oh, I'm very happy. And he said, but I'm up for Senate, you know. I'm going to be a senator and I'm going to make a difference. I'm going to change the laws. Because there's still rape in our society, but I'm doing what I can to stop it. I'm worried for my daughter, worried for my wife. I'm trying to teach my son, though, the right way of things and teach him that this is wrong. So I moved him on again, in time, asked him where he was, and he said, oh, I'm in a big villa now. I'm in a big villa now. I'm a senator, you know. Done a lot with my life, changed a lot of laws, brought in a new way of being. Not quite right yet, though. Rape is still with us in this society, but nowhere near like it used to be. Moved him on a little more. And he said, I'm dying. I'm in bed. I'm still in the big villa. I'm dying. And all of a sudden, he said, don't cry. Oh, don't cry. And then he said to me, but they can't hear me. They can't hear me. Oh, please don't cry. I'm all right. They can't hear me. He literally just died to that lifetime and passed over. So what we were actually witnessing was a compassionate man, a kind man, a caring man, a responsible man. So I brought him back out of that regression to talk about it because, of course, if it doesn't make sense in this lifetime, if it doesn't tie in with this lifetime, there's not much point in stirring up your little can of worms if you can't actually empty them away. And so we need to talk about it in the light of today. So I did say to Bill, what have you learned from that experience, Bill? What have you understood? Anything? And he said, oh my God, yes. I said, but the other thing I'm needing to ask you is, do you know anyone in that past life that is in your lifetime today? And instantly he blanched white and said, oh my God, Patty. Patty was my friend, the Roman soldier, my best friend. It's Patty. And then he said, so you mean she asked for the experience she's had. She asked to be raped so she could understand what it's like to be the victim instead of the aggressor? He said, oh my God, that's why she got over it. But it doesn't explain. I didn't get over it. It doesn't explain why I killed 2 people, does it? And as I said to him, but what you've understood is if Patty chose her role for good reason, there was something for her to learn here, don't you think you chose your role too? And don't you think your victims chose what would happen to them? And in this lifetime, you will never be able to convince their families and friends that they were anything other than innocent men. For in this lifetime, they were. But we don't know what went on between you all in other lifetimes. We don't know why they wanted to make that choice this time. But we have to accept that if Patty's experience was a choice, then so was yours, and so was theirs. And you have made a very difficult choice in this lifetime to be the villain for all those years. And he said, you're right, because he said, my father wouldn't speak to me, of course, after what I've done. He said, I've never, ever been able to speak to him from that day to this. He said, my mother committed suicide after I was put in the state penitentiary. So he said, it's completely destroyed my family. And he said, really, I just felt I was a waste of space. I've destroyed, not my life, but I've destroyed everybody else's. And in so doing, it's destroyed mine. But he said, now at last I feel I can understand what it was about. And as I said to him, you've carried a huge weight for a very long time. But what have you truly learned? That's the purpose of it. Have you understood anything from the experiences you've had today? And putting it together with what's gone on in the past life. And he said, yes, yeah. Never, never, never does anything excuse taking another life. Because he said, when you think about it, the worst thing that happened to me, Vicky, the very worst thing was, after I'd killed those men, he said, I was banged up in the state penitentiary with rapists and murderers. He said, and of course, it came home to me. That's what I was. So he said, I've learned, you never take a life, not on any account. And so it freed him with understanding and the burden that he'd carried for a long, long time, and allowed him to understand what the purpose of it was, and that he actually had learned probably the most valuable lesson in life. So there isn't a can of worms that you can open that isn't being opened because it's ready to be got rid of.